Last week, February 7th, the chairman sent a letter over to you. Just wondering if you had seen it, read it, and had a chance to get some info.
Seen it, read it. Some of that, it was the request for the 10 years of data, and a lot of that is contained within our regional offices, so we're still in the process of assembling that information.
The main concern that I'm looking at, and the real info that I want is, when an outside group challenges a permit, and they win in court, DEP is required to pay attorney fees. That's the real number that I'm looking at. I don't know if you have a ballpark or if you're ready to throw out a number.
I don't have a number off the top, but that's something, as soon as we get it, I can provide back, and then, whatever forum we want to have to discuss that, I'm more than willing to
Okay.
do.
Mr. Secretary, I'm going to interrupt just a second. I'm going to have you come back if you don't have those numbers today, because I think it's important for the committee members to really have an opportunity to discuss those. That's why I sent you the letter ahead of time, is that it is so critical for us to understand what these organizations are costing the taxpayers of Pennsylvania in these lawsuits. While you're diligently working to try and clean up the environment, other environmental groups are basically destroying your budget, we believe, with their constant lawsuits and constant harassment. So just so put you on notice, we'll have you come back, and I'll turn it back to Representative Ortitay.
Thank you. And basically for everyone here and everyone listening, the crux of it is to figure out, we have all these lawsuits against the state, against DEP. It's just trying to figure out how much we're spending, how much taxpayer dollars we're paying out, and then how much time and effort your department attorneys are also taking up on these issues as well. Have you had to hire outside counsel to deal with any of these?
Again, I'd have to get you an answer. I don't know off the top of my head if they're specific. I guess the two things I'd point out is, one, I think it's specific statutes that have the attorney fee provision in it, and two, I mean, I think important to point out the balancing thing.
Well, for your staff, because I know that one of the issues has been the complement of staff that DEP has, and I guess what I'm getting at is do you feel that you have adequate staff to handle these types of lawsuits, or lawsuits in general that DEP has to defend? I
think the cases where we would bring in someone else, and again, I'd have to get the specifics, would be a particular area of expertise or something like that we would want to look to bring someone into. I will, the one point I would make is, I think, one, there is the budgetary impact that was brought up. Two, a lot of the private groups don't necessarily have the resources to bring a challenge or the wherewithal to bring a challenge. So I think that was why that was originally established in the law.
I understand that. I'm not debating the merits of that. I'm just curious as to what the taxpayers have been on the hook for, why we've gone, not why we've gone down that road, but where we are in process for those permits. Why are we continually getting sued? Is it a process that DEP is not doing? Is it a permitting issue? Is it evaluation? I mean, what's the real issue?
So the thing I'd point out is, I think, and again, we can look at some of these figures, but I would hazard to guess it's a relatively small percentage of our permits and authorizations that are ultimately subject to any sort of challenge. So it's not something that is every permit or the majority of permits are subject to those kind of challenges.
Well, I'd love to have those stats if you have them. There's a percentage of permits.
I'll see what we can pull in.
Absolutely, that would be fantastic. No, you mentioned tracking. A lot of this information's housed regionally. Mm-hmm. Now, the regional offices track this and then report it back up to you, because I would imagine if DEP is cutting checks to pay for legal fees, that's got to come out of some sort of account at the state level, not so much the local level, right?
Sure. So for example, if it was within the Clean Water Program, it would come out of the Clean Water Fund.
Okay, so it comes out of there. It doesn't come out of like your general operations or a special fund that you guys have set aside for that.
It would come out of particular special funds that receive fees, fines, penalties into them.
Okay. All right. Switching gears, I wanted to discuss a little bit about the Climate Action Plan and its effect on AEPS. Are you able to talk about that at this point? I know
the final plan itself is being put out next month. I can share within the draft plan, and then more specifically in the Pennsylvania Solar Future recommendations. There were a number of recommendations. One of those was to increase the solar carve out for the Advanced Energy Portfolio Standard to between 4% and 8%. So that was one of the recommendations within the Solar Future Report.
Now, as part of this recommendations, are they giving any recommendations on how we're going to get there? I know there's some other recommendations in there that really change our portfolio here. I'm just wondering if they're looking at how much this is going to drive up utility costs, cost in general to get there. And, I think Pennsylvania's done a really good job in cutting their emissions so far without government intervention and government mandates. I see that I'm out of time, but I'm just wondering why we're deviating from that when it's already working without us really getting involved.
There's definitely cost-benefit information within the Climate Action Plan. Be more than happy to share that information.